longtime MLB exec, MLB Network analyst, Steve Phillips. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good to be with you.
That's good to be with you here. We're in a precarious situation with the Guardians and how they've gone from the ALCS to now being, I want to say we're still 7 games below 500. Is it too early to bail on the season if you're the Guardians?
I think it is, only because the American League is I think, up for grabs still a little, particularly the wild card. There's just Detroit's played great, but I still have some doubts about them. And I start thinking about the other teams around. There's so many teams right around 500. That's a good hot streak. I mean, look, if they win out going into the All-Star break, the Guardians, they're right back in the mix for all of this. So yeah, I think it's a little too early to bail on it. I'd like to see what they do going into the break and coming out of it. But they've got to find ways to score runs, and they just haven't been able to do that.
So where does your optimism lie? What's the strength of your optimism there?
Well, the bullpen. I love the bullpen, and obviously they don't have to score a lot; they just have to score enough, and that's really been the MO there. I mean, they can't buy power in the free agent market, power arms or power bats, so they've got to try to find different ways to get it done. And I mean, part of my optimism is they did it last year, and they did get contributions from a lot of different players last year that allowed them to score enough to be able to compete. But, I get that it's not happened so far, but quite honestly, it's not happening so far for a lot of teams in the American League.
Steve, one of the things we talked about, you talked about the inability to buy power, which is absolutely true. But just in general, this organization, and it goes even beyond the current run of success or lack thereof, they just haven't been able to find and develop even hitting. Like they've spent a lot on great contact hitters, and then a fair amount of those guys never became what Stephen Kwan became, who was a great college hitter, contact hitter. I'm just curious, when you're dealing with an organizational issue like that, how easy is it to fix something like the hitting side of your developmental track?
Yeah, it's quite honestly, I think it's in some ways, and you're right. I mean, that's been the issue for them is they're a great pitching development organization, but they don't get it done with offense. And I think that's something that they need to really look at. When in doubt, interestingly, I would take a hitter over a pitcher in the draft. Everything's equal, take the hitter, because it's much more difficult, I think, to find hitters in the marketplace if you don't get them and develop them yourself. And so, and they've spent some time and money on drafting pitching, and sure, it can pan out, but I think you can find pitching in different places. I mean, even if you just start thinking about, pitchers on their staff and where they came from and how they got them and in trades and how they bring guys in, and you can go get the Ben Lively's and Ortiz's and guys like that for your rotation, but you can't get the power bat. You can't get the guy that can hit and play defense for you. And so I think that philosophically, they spent so much time on being so good on pitching that I think they need to find ways to go get bats, because you can't always trade a pitcher for a hitter. But oftentimes, if you've got an everyday player, somebody will give you a pitcher for them. And they'll find a way to go get more pitching themselves. And so I think they really need to focus on not only developing, but they've got to draft more of them. I remember a couple of years ago, the Angels said, "Oh, we can't ever get pitching," so they drafted 20 pitchers. Mm-hmm. They drafted all pitchers in the draft, and I'm thinking, no, if you want pitching, go sign 20 hitters, and then you've got access to everybody's pitching if you can do that. And so I kind of look at it a little bit differently, and I think that the focus has to be on the offense because you can find arms.
What's interesting about that Angels draft is that they didn't hit on any of them either. That was the impressive part. They just whiffed on all 20 of them. But I do think that they have, Steve, they have organizationally shifted. Yes, they're known for their pitching, but they have changed. I mean, 9 out of the top 10 prospects in the organization right now is all hitters. It's all offense. It's just they're having a hard time getting those guys from AAA to the big leagues and watching it actually work out. And what we've seen now, and there's obviously some bad trades in there, but it feels like we have a bunch of Ernie Clements out there where these guys that they come up, they don't do particularly much, then they trade them off to a different team, and before you know it, then they're just mashing in other places.
Yeah, well, I think that part of that is patience. And, one of the things about, because we've been so spoiled with young guys getting into the big leagues and performing well, that when anybody has a little bit of a bobble, we think, oh, he's not going to be able to hit. And then they slowly start to figure it out. Ernie Clement's a great example of that right now. Like, he's been such an important player for the Blue Jays and their dramatic run, winning 9 in a row and back atop the American League East. And guys like Addison Barger and that, who, were good minor league hitters that got up and they struggled. And you can give up on those guys. And the next thing you know, they figure it out a little bit. I think the other thing is that if you can find veteran players, and they do a good job, the Carlos Santanas and guys like that they bring in, but a veteran good hitter doesn't have to have power, but just assign one of those guys whose approach, like I thought a JD Martinez would have been a great pickup. Now, he didn't get offered enough money from anybody. He decided to sort of not come back and play this year. But he's a guy that has power. It wasn't going to cost money. He's older, but he is such an approach-based hitter that I thought a guy like that would have been a great fit for the Guardians, because sometimes it's the way you think. It's not swinging the bat that's the issue. It's thinking that becomes the problem for hitters. Everybody's swing is pretty much a good swing by the time they get to the big league. It comes down to, what are you thinking? What are you looking for? What's your plan? And guys like JD Martinez, who really figured out a plan, I think could help so many young hitters. And those are the kind of guys I would look for them to try to add to this roster moving forward in the future.
Steve, let's say 3 weeks from now, there are another 3 or 4 games below 500, and they decide to sell. What the 2 big names, the one obviously is Clase, one we've talked about because of where his contract is. He's got 2 years of control left after this, so 3 years of postseason control is Stephen Kwan. What scenarios do you think would make? What teams do you think would be lining up to trade for either one of those guys?
Yeah, so Kwan is a blender offensively. He's not an aircraft carrier. And so I think you could make any deal you could make today, you can make a year from now for him. And so I don't know that I make a move right now for him. I don't. I think that, he's let him play it out a little bit, see if you can extend him. I mean, he's not going to break the bank. He's the kind of guy that they can afford, actually, with the type of player that he is. And so I don't know that I move him, because I don't know that you get a lot. Cedric Mullins is out there in the market, probably from Baltimore. And I don't know that I move Kwan right now. For Clase, I keep an open mind. I wanted to pitch better going into it, to where the market out there steps up a little bit. But I would trade him. I would. I think that I love Kate Smith. I think Gaddis, they've got guys who can fill that 9th inning, and if they can get a big score for it, then I would absolutely consider trading Clase. And for the amount of innings that he eats as a closer, if you can get premium return for him when teams are hungry for the postseason, especially this time of year, I'd be all over. It's got postseason pedigree, although not perfect. It certainly is the pedigree to get there. I would absolutely move him if teams come calling.
What kind of return would Shane Bieber get?
Yeah, nothing really. I mean, I think that, with the injury history and working back, we saw the Matthew Boyd deal last year, right? That, you think, picking him up down the stretch and the Alex Cobb deals and picking him up down, or I guess Boyd was there for the injury recovery, but the Alex Cobb sort of deals, that's not going to bring anything in return, because, not having pitched, not having shown what you can do, I think teams would just be like, they're going to downplay it, and there will be better, healthier options that they can consider at the deadline.
Steve Phillips on the North Olmsted Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram hotline. So when it comes to where the Guardians are, if you're in a stretch like this, would you rather just finish the skid and then use the All-Star break as a reset, or do you think you can even reset before the All-Star break?
Oh, yeah, I think you have to try to reset now. I think that is dangerous thinking, to think, okay, let's just get to the break and we'll fix it afterwards. I think you've got to have the daily grind to fix it today, because if you wait till then, I mean, these games matter. This next week matters. Those are 6 or 7 games that you're not going to get back. And so the idea of just saying, well, we'll fix it over the break. I think you've got to try to fix it every, Saturday going into Sunday before the All-Star break. You got to try to fix it. And I'm sure they are. They're trying to do what they can to get things going. and I will tell you, the Blue Jays are a good example. I mean, they didn't hit a lick until they did, and they got it going. And it's, guys sort of getting out of their own heads. We see everybody in the dugout with that hangdog look, looking at the video on the iPad, trying to figure out what's going on with the pitch and their swing. And instead of rooting for each other and picking each other up, and somehow the Guardians have to get back into that mode of good starting pitching, score early, play defense, take the extra base, be aggressive because you got to lead and get a rhythm to the way they play, and then shake hands at the end of the game. But right now they're trailing all the time. They've got high pressure at bat. They can't be as aggressive on the bases because they fall behind. They've gotten out of that rhythm that has been their way of playing over the last couple of years. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can't get it turned around.
Has this changed the viewpoint on Stephen Vogt nationally, or do you feel like that's just even an unfair question based off of the lack of talent that exists on this roster?
Yeah, I don't think it's a judgment there. Good managers, he's a good manager last year, manager of the year, because his pitchers pitched and they scored enough and everything went right. And, he can still do all the right things. He can be even a better manager this year, and the results won't happen. And, underperformance and injuries and the right guy going down at the wrong time. And so, I don't think anybody's going to doubt that he's a quality manager.
Steve, really great stuff, man. Appreciate you, and can't wait to see how the second half of the season unfolds.
Terrific. Thanks for having me on, guys. Best of luck to you guys and the Guardians.
Thank you so much. Steve Phillips there.